Hey, and welcome to Synaptic Soul, the podcast where science meets spirit, and we get real about the beautiful and brutal and magical mess of being human. I'm your host, Ava Marie Anderson, writer, mystic, multidimensional mischief maker. Quick disclaimer, you may hear the occasional snort, sigh, dramatic flop from my two French bulldogs, Rocky and Rambo. They're the soundtracks of my life, my soul companions, and honestly, the real stars of the show. Someday we'll dedicate a full episode to their role in my daily rituals, emotional healing, and wild spiritual life. But for now, just know that they're always close by, snoring their support. Let's dive in. It's strange, isn't it? How a whole life can fall apart in the quietest of ways. We imagine breakdowns as these loud theatrical things like crying on kitchen floors and yelling matches and suitcases being thrown out of windows like in a bad rom-com. But in reality, real collapse is subtle. It's slow erosion, not sudden explosion. Sometimes it's a conversation that just doesn't happen, or a truth that you swallow instead of speaking. It's a doctor's diagnosis that you pretend isn't that serious, or a partner's silence that just lingers too long, stretching into the shape of disconnection. It's that pause between heartbeats when you realize that just something is off and you're not okay and you likely haven't been for a while. But you keep moving, because that's what we're taught, right? Keep grinding, keep hustling, keep smiling. You got this, they say, usually in bold font over a pastel background on Instagram. But let me tell you what I got in 2021. A full-blown spiritual ass-kicking wrapped in the disguise of my life falling apart. And let me tell you, my love, no Canva quote prepared me for that. But the collapse didn't start in 2021. That was just the moment the wreckage hit the ground. The real damage had been brewing for years. Cracks forming in my nervous system, beliefs starting to peel at the edges, relationships unraveling thread by thread, health issues waving red flags while I just waved back with maybe a, I'll catch you later, I'm busy. I was trying to outrun myself, as if the body doesn't keep receipts. But spoiler alert, it does. And when it all fell apart, it wasn't just a bad day or a rough patch. It was a full system implosion. And not just emotional or financial, but a deep existential one. The kind that shakes your spiritual core and sends your inner child and your shadow self and your higher self all into a group chat screaming, "Emergency meeting now." In trauma psychology, we call this a dismantling of the identity structure. And it sounds fancy, but it really just means that the version of you that you've been performing, so the one that you've been living inside, paying rent to with your time and energy, it goes offline. And it's not poetic, it's scientific. Your sense of self is held in a network of brain regions like the medial prefrontal cortex and the default mode network. These neural hotspots help you narrate your own stories, your memories, and your self-perception and your beliefs about the world. But when trauma or loss hits, they just short circuit. The system goes dark. You don't just feel like a different person. You literally don't even know who you are. But let's call it a divine identity crisis. So in my case, this holy collapse looked like quitting my well-paying corporate job to work full-time for a spiritual lab, pulling in a humble $2,500 a month while living in San Diego, a city that charges rent like it thinks it's Paris. It looked like autoimmune flares that erupted like rage from my bones, which years of silence screaming their final protest through my joints and my gut and my skin. It looked like ending a toxic relationship and watching my kids move out and waking up completely alone for the very first time in my adult life. No husband, no babies, nobody to perform for, just me and the echo chamber of my own unraveling. And it was brutal, and it was quiet, and it was also sacred. I call it the sacred rubble. Because even though it felt like a demolition, something about it rang holy. It was like my soul had made an executive decision. It's like, we're done here. It was like an eviction notice served to the false self that I'd been trying to keep alive with caffeine and spiritual bypassing and basically sheer willpower. It's that version of me that I couldn't carry the frequency of where I was going. Like, she had to burn. And let me say the thing nobody really wants to say. When everything falls apart, you don't feel free. At least not right away. You don't rise from the ashes like a fabulous phoenix with your hair blowing in slow motion. Like, you feel raw, and you feel terrified, and you feel like a broken circuit board that's sparking and sparking, and then silent. And you have no idea how to rebuild. There's no manual and no roadmap, just dust and confusion. But here's the magic hiding in the wreckage. Your body already knows how to rebuild because you were designed for regeneration. Your nervous system, as wrecked as it might feel, is not your enemy. It's your truth teller. It breaks down when the version of life that you've been sustaining isn't compatible with your survival. And if you've been ignoring the whispers, oh baby, it'll scream. And then when it does, your healing doesn't start in your mind. You don't just affirm your way out of a nervous system collapse. That cute little post-it on your mirror that says you are enough is lovely, but it is not going to recalibrate your vagus nerve, because healing begins in the body, in the rewiring, in the resting, and in the rupture, because your body is your soul's address. And it's not a failure, it's feedback. It's the evidence of your courage and the proof of something inside you that you refuse to pretend any longer. Something ancient, something wise and bone deep said, this isn't it. We're done here. And when you finally surrender to the fall, like when you finally stop gripping onto the crumbling scaffolding of your former self, the body breathes for the first time in years. And it's not pretty. And it's not glamorous, but it is real. So, if you're standing in the wreckage right now, if you're blinking through the dust and unsure whether this is the end or if it's the beginning, I want you to know that it's both. Because in the spiritual physics of rebirth, collapse isn't a detour, it's a portal. And where you're going next, that strange, disorienting liminal space between who you were and who you're becoming, well, that means you're headed straight into the void. And I'll see you there. After the collapse, there's quiet, but not the peaceful, Instagrammable quiet that you find on a meditation retreat in Bali. Like, there's no flower crowns or sound bowls echoing in the yurt while somebody named Sky chants softly in the background. I'm talking about the void, like the real one, the kind of silence that isn't silent at all. It hums. It buzzes in your ears and it reverberates down your chest like a subwoofer turned way down low. And you feel it more than you hear it. And it's deafening. So this, my friend, is the freeze. The big nervous system nope. It's the stage after the collapse where your body quite literally cannot move. And not because it's lazy, and not because you're depressed or because you lack willpower, but because your entire system has decided that motion equals danger. And so it presses pause. And not gently and not sweetly, but with the force of a cosmic remote control slamming the stop button. In trauma psychology, this is known as the dorsal vagal shutdown. It's the part of your parasympathetic branch of your autonomic nervous system. So, you know how your body has fight or flight reactions when it senses danger? Well, when neither fighting nor fleeing feels like an option, the body does something even more primal. It freezes, and it shuts down, and it folds inward like a dying star protecting the core. And it's not weakness. It's actually ancient survival intelligence. And it's what animals do in the wild when they play dead to avoid being eaten. Except in our case, it looks more like scrolling Instagram for 5 hours and forgetting to eat and then wondering why our soul feels like it's packed in bubble wrap. And the kicker, from the outside, you might look fine. Like you're answering emails and you're getting the kids to school and you're showing up at the meetings and even throwing out a ha ha or an LOL in a text or two. But inside you're frozen and you're disconnected and you feel hollow. And that's the paradox of the void. You're performing life when feeling like you're just a ghost in your own skin. But let's just pause here for a breath of compassion. Because if you're in this stage, it is so easy to hate yourself. And you think, why can't I just get it together? And you then berate yourself for being tired or numb or weepy or like disconnected. And you try to logic your way back to who you were before the fall. But logic doesn't work in the void. The laws are different here. Linear time? Doesn't apply. Productivity? Irrelevant. Goals? Honey, the only goal is to exist without combusting. And the void isn't a mistake. It's not a detour. It's a necessary passageway. And it is the chrysalis, the cocoon, that weird goo stage between caterpillar and butterfly where everything dissolves into mush. Which, by the way, did you know that? So when a caterpillar enters metamorphosis, it literally digests itself into a biological soup. Like total liquefaction. Like identity, gone. Timeline, gone. Job title, relationship status, spiritual brand, it is all gone. You are soup, babe. You are sacred, interdimensional soup. But don't underestimate that soup, because within it lies imaginal cells, which are the blueprint of the butterfly. These cells carry the code of who you are becoming, and they activate in the dark, and they multiply when everything else breaks down. They are the biological proof that evolution requires surrender. And in quantum physics, this stage is mirrored by something called the vacuum state, which is basically a field of apparent nothingness that is paradoxically teeming with potential. And it seems empty, but it's not. It's where the next version of reality gets decided. It's the unmanifest, the in-between. It's that fertile silence. And that's where you are in the void. Not broken, not erased, but ripe. And from a neurological perspective, your brain waves are shifting too. So trauma and shock can push you into dominant theta and delta wave states, especially when paired with shutdown. And these are the same brainwave patterns that we enter in deep sleep and hypnosis. And that might be why you feel like you're sleepwalking through life during this time. You're not lazy. You're repatterning. You are accessing the subconscious directly, where real change is initiated. And yet, here's the messy part. You're still expected to function, to reply to texts, to cook, to keep your life together, even though your insides feel rewired like an IKEA dresser with zero instruction. And you might find yourself crying in the produce aisle or zoning out during sex or laughing hysterically at something deeply unfunny. And you're not losing your mind. You're just losing your false self. And yeah, it's terrifying. And this is also when the spiritual gaslighting can creep in. So people will say things like, everything happens for a reason, or just focus on the positive. And you'll want to scream. Because in the void, those platitudes feel like sandpaper on your soul. Like you don't need reason. You just need room. Room to feel and to breathe and to not know. So the void is where you learn how to be with yourself without really needing to be productive or useful or fixed. It's I don't know, where you learn that rest isn't indulgent, it's actually regenerative. And when you stop performing healing and you actually start to begin it. And this is where you build safety. And it's not by forcing progress, but by creating tiny rituals of presence, like drinking water like it matters, or holding your own hand in the bath, or even just laying on the floor and whispering, I don't know what's next, but I'm here. And it's not sexy, but it is sacred. And eventually, if you stay long enough, something begins to stir. And it's not the rush of who you used to be, but the whisper of who you might become. It's a flicker or a sigh or a hum. Not yet, but soon. So stay here with me just a moment longer. Like, don't rush to rebuild. Let the soup do its thing. Let the imaginal cells multiply. And let your nervous system soften. Like, you don't have to force your way out of this. Because the void isn't punishment. It's preparation. And on the other side, oh, baby, we are about to step into biology, alchemy, and quantum magnetism. This episode is brought to you in part by one of my most favorite humans on this spinning planet, Morgan Garza, and her book Soul Magic. If you've ever felt like your power was just waiting beneath the surface, or like there's something ancient and electric inside of you ready to be reclaimed, then this is the book that helps you remember. Soul Magic is not just a read, it is a summoning. It's filled with rituals and stories and the kind of grounded spiritual wisdom that doesn't talk at you, it talks with you. Morgan writes like a soul sister, a cosmic cheerleader, and a priestess all rolled into one. And it's a must-have for anyone on the path of awakening, reclaiming. So grab your copy at morgangarza.com or wherever books are sold, or bless someone else's journey and gift it. Because real magic's meant to be shared. That's Soul Magic by Morgan Garza. You'll feel it in your bones. All right, so here you are, not who you were and not quite who you'll become, just suspended in the liminal goo of post-collapse and post-void life. Like, you've survived the wreckage. You've whispered to the walls of the void. And now you're beginning to feel something. Maybe it's a flicker or a pull, or just a very soft maybe in your chest. So this is the moment that we shift from collapse to creation, from spiritual soup to restructural reboot. But before you go thinking this means you need to get it together or start setting goals again, just pause. Because what's happening now is not hustle. It's actually healing. And this kind of healing doesn't happen in your hustle cortex. It happens in your nervous system, in your brain, in your biochemistry, in your field. This is your body saying, all right, like, let's rebuild, but maybe this time from a place of truth. So let's just start where all good transformations start, which is the nervous system. So after trauma or prolonged stress, your nervous system doesn't just bounce back like a beach ball. No, ma'am. It's more like a stubborn cat, and you need to approach it gently and respect its boundaries and maybe even earn its trust again. So the body's primary system for regulation is the polyvagal system, and it branches through the vagus nerve like an ancient sacred river of signal and safety. So when we're in survival mode, like fight or flight or freeze, we operate from our sympathetic or dorsal vagal states. So think anxiety and shutdown and disassociation. But when we're safe, when we start to reconnect with life and with pleasure and with self, that's the ventral vagal state. It's the gold standard of healing. It's when your body goes, oh, we're not in danger anymore. Maybe I can digest, and maybe I can soften, and maybe I can trust this moment. So reaching this state isn't about calming down or breathing deeply like some smug wellness influencer tells you to. It's about slowly repatterning your internal barometer for safety. Because your nervous system doesn't respond to affirmations, it responds to repetition. So, healing looks like thousands of tiny, quiet yeses, like petting your dog, or sitting in the sun, or just noticing your breath without judgment. Maybe it's choosing to walk away from the drama this time. It's all micro moments of choice that begin to repave the pathways in your brain and in your body. Which now brings us to neuroplasticity, which is your brain's ability to rewire itself. So if your brain were a city, neuroplasticity is the construction crew. And if you've been living in a bad neighborhood of like shame and self-doubt and trauma thoughts, guess what? We're building new roads, baby. And the coolest part is you don't even have to feel ready. You just need to begin. So every time you choose presence over panic, or compassion over critique, or softness over shutdown, you're reinforcing new neural pathways. And it's like training a puppy. It's gonna take some consistency, and there's gonna be some accidents on the carpet, and it's gonna require a whole lot of patience. But eventually, those new patterns become your default, and your baseline becomes peace. Now let's talk about your HPA axis. It's the central stress response highway connecting your hypothalamus and your pituitary gland and your adrenals. So when you've been stuck in survival, this system gets fried, like frazzled to a crisp fried. Your body starts overproducing cortisol, which is the stress hormone, and basically messing with everything from your digestion to your hormones to your immune system. And you might feel tired but wired, or bloated and foggy, or emotionally erratic, or like you need a nap after sending just one email. But as your nervous system re-regulates, the HPA axis begins to stabilize. Cortisol balances. Inflammatory signals start to calm down. The immune system stops panicking. And then your sleep gets deeper. Your PMS improves. You cry and you actually feel better afterward. And it's not just feeling better, it's a hormonal recalibration. It's trauma unwinding from the endocrine system. And it's your body relearning peace as its home frequency. Energetically, this phase is when your biofield begins to knit itself back together. And your biofield is the electromagnetic field that surrounds and informs your body. It's what many traditions call your aura, or your prana sheath, or your light body. And let me tell you, trauma doesn't just leave emotional bruises. It distorts your field. It tears it and it leaks it. And sometimes it even collapses parts of it entirely. But as you ground and you breathe and you create and you rest and you laugh and you cry and you just be, you start to restore the integrity of your field. You become less porous. You stop absorbing everybody else's moods and projections, and you stop leaking energy into past versions of yourself. You become sovereign in your signal. And let me tell you, that signal is magnetic. In quantum physics, we call this coherence. It's when your brain and your heart and your body come into synchronized frequency. It's your whole electromagnetic field becomes coherent, which is like flipping the come get me universe switch. Coherent fields draw the experiences in that match. And that's why the more regulated and aligned you become, the more your external reality starts to shift. And it's not because you're manifesting hard enough, but because your frequency is finally clean enough to reflect your truth. It's the biology of becoming. It's not glamorous. It's not a before and after photo. It's sometimes crying at 9 a.m. and then laughing by 11. It's choosing not to spiral into old patterns, even when every cell wants to. It's trusting the slow biological unfolding of yourself into yourself. Because healing isn't just mental or spiritual. It's cellular. It's quantum. It's endocrine and epigenetic and energetic. It's remembering that your body isn't betraying you. It's just trying to reintroduce you to yourself. But, here's the truth of it. You can't out-affirm a fried nervous system. Like, you can't bypass your biology with good vibes only, and you sure as hell can't spiritually gaslight yourself into coherence. But you can rebuild one breath at a time, one choice at a time, one moment of honoring your body's truth, even if it's messy and inconvenient or slow. Your body wants to heal. Like, your brain wants to rewire, and your field wants to harmonize because you are designed for this. So in the next segment, we're going to go even deeper. We're going to go into the unseen layers of how you're becoming, how the quantum field responds to your coherence, and how trust isn't a mindset, but a frequency. And then also how to know somatically the difference between fear and truth. Okay, now that we've stretched out on the electric blanket of neurobiology, let's talk about the real juicy stuff. The invisible threads and the quantum winks and the what the fuck is happening, but I feel it in my bones territory. Because once your body starts to stabilize and once your nervous system is no longer screaming that everything is on fire, something incredible starts to happen. You begin to notice the field. And no, it's not like a literal field, though, but please go frolic if you have access to one. I'm talking about the quantum field. It's that mysterious matrix of potentiality that connects all things beyond time and beyond space and beyond what your five senses can perceive. This is where your energy speaks louder than your words, and where your frequency starts to pull in new realities. It's where the version of you that already exists in wholeness starts waving from the wings. But let's start with the observer effect, which is one of the most mind-blowing discoveries in quantum physics. Scientists found that the mere act of observing a particle changes its behavior. So think about that. The very fact that consciousness is watching alters the outcome. So what does that mean for us? Well, it means that you're not a passive participant in your life. You are the co-creator. So your inner state, your thoughts, your emotions, your vibrational baseline is influencing the unfolding of your reality at the subatomic level. And yeah, I know that sounds woo, but it is also science. And frankly, the overlap between woo and science is where all the fun happens. When you're deep in trauma, your frequency, your energetic signature is often aligned with fear and scarcity and self-doubt and survival. And it's not because you're doing something wrong, but because the signal that your nervous system is putting out, basically. It's not a punishment, it's pure data. It's the field responding to the signal, not your affirmations. And so this is why just saying, I am abundant, while your gut is clenched and your chest is tight doesn't always do the trick. Because the field isn't responding to your words. It's responding to your coherence. It's reading the electromagnetic harmony between your brain and your heart, your mind and your body. Which brings us to one of the most powerful tools in your quantum toolbox, and that's embodied trust. This isn't just the believe in everything will work out kind of trust. It's deeper. It's cellular and it's somatic. And it's when your body exudes a quiet, grounded yes, even though your mind hasn't caught up yet. It's when you don't need proof because your entire being is in alignment. But here's the rub. If you've been through trauma, your inner compass may be scrambled. Your gut might mistake anxiety for intuition, and your heart might contract where it should expand. And your body might scream run at the first hint of intimacy or opportunity. And that's not your truth talking. It's your trauma. So, how do we recalibrate? Well, let's get nerdy for a second. Your enteric nervous system, aka your second brain, lives in your gut, and it contains over 100 million neurons. It communicates directly with your brain via the vagus nerve. And this is why you get gut feelings, and it's why stress messes with digestion, and it's why your instincts often know what's up before your logical mind does. But when the system is dysregulated, those intuitive pings can become distorted. And so the real work isn't forcing yourself to trust the universe, it's learning to trust your body again. And so you start small. You begin with, I don't know, do I feel expansive or contracted around this person? You pause when your heart flutters or your gut churns, and you breathe through the discomfort instead of bypassing it. Like, you don't gaslight your signals just because they're inconvenient. And with each moment of listening, of honoring, and of not abandoning yourself, you begin to create coherence. And that coherence is your quantum ID badge. It's what magnetizes the life that matches who you're becoming, not who you were surviving as. So let's clear something up. Manifestation isn't about forcing an outcome. It's not about positive thinking or scripting your way into a mansion. It's about attuning, about becoming the version of you that's energetically compatible with what it is you desire, and not just thinking about it, embodying it. And that means getting real with your current vibration and what it's anchored in. So here's an example. Let's say you want love. You want this deep and soulful and safe embodied love, right? We all do. But your nervous system's still wired for abandonment. And your cells still flinch at vulnerability. And your breath still shortens around intimacy. And you can visualize the Mr. and Mrs. Twin Flame all day, but if your body doesn't believe that love is safe, well, the field responds to that. So, don't panic. It isn't about being perfectly healed. That's another myth. This is all about congruence. It's all about truth and about aligning your frequency with what's real and not what's performative. Because let me tell you, truth is magnetic. Authenticity bends reality. And this is why people start showing up differently, and why jobs appear out of nowhere, and why synchronicities flood your inbox even when you're not looking. And it's not because you hacked the matrix, but because you became the signal that was already aligned with what it is that you desire. And this is why trauma-informed quantum work matters so very much. Like, it grounds the mystical into the physical. It honors the human while activating the divine. And it doesn't ask you to bypass your wounds. It asks you to integrate them so that they no longer distort your field. And the best part is that it's nonlinear. So time in the quantum field does not march in a straight line. It loops and it folds and it echoes. And that means that your future self, the one who is whole and regulated and radiant as fuck, is already real. It's already vibrating in the field. And every aligned action that you take now is like reaching through time and grabbing that thread. So every breath and every boundary and every truth-telling moment is a tether to that future. You're not faking it till you make it. You're remembering it until you become it. So breathe. Let your frequency catch up with your future. Like, let your body lead you home, and let your coherence do the talking. Because in the next segment, we're going to bring it all down to earth. So how do you live when your soul is quantum, but your body still has to do the fucking dishes? Let's step into the sacred and unsexy and profoundly magical phase of it all. This episode is supported in part by Saged app, aka the app that's basically a metaphysical multivitamin. It's like having a spiritual sanctuary in your pocket minus the incense smoke in your purse. It's also where I host my new moon manifestation clubs, which, if you know, you know, we go deep. So if you're ready to stop doom scrolling and start soul scrolling, download Sage in the App Store or Google Play and then step into a more intentional, magical version of your day. That's SAGED, like Sage, but with an app. Back to the episode. So this is the part where no one claps for. There's no viral TikTok montage with uplifting music and no "you got this" coffee mug or Pinterest board titled Sacred Rebirth Aesthetic. It's just you, your still tender nervous system, and a Monday morning that does not give a single flying chakra about your quantum alignment. Welcome to the slow rebuild. This is that sacred, awkward, unglamorous phase where you start reassembling your life from the inside out. And it's not from performance and not from pressure, but from presence and from practice, from the excruciatingly human work of living in a body that is still learning how to feel safe. But let's be real. This is actually harder than the collapse. Because collapse has a weird kind of clarity to it. Like, you're in survival mode. You know everything is on fire, and it's your job to just not combust. But once the smoke clears, and once the void has whispered its strange truths into your bones, you're just left with a daunting, humbling task of now what? And this is where the rebuild happens. But hear me. This rebuild is not a return. You are not piecing together the old life. You are not recreating the scaffolding that collapsed. You're building something entirely new, something that your soul recognizes even if your ego doesn't. And it's something built for the version of you that knows better now. And it starts with tiny acts of devotion. And it's not discipline. Not perfection, devotion, the quiet, reverent choice to show up for yourself in ways that you were never taught. It's to honor your nervous system as the oracle that it is, or to treat your body not as a project to fix, but as a sacred home that you get to return to. So let's talk about your ventral vagal state for a moment. And this is the state of calm connection and safety and social engagement. It's where your nervous system goes when it feels safe to be seen or to rest or to relate. And you don't live here 24/7 unless you're secretly a Tibetan monk or maybe even a Labrador retriever. But this is the zone that we are trying to visit more often. And you know you're landing in it when you just spontaneously sigh, or when you just notice beauty, or when you feel like reaching out to a friend instead of ghosting the world. Maybe it's when you remember to water your plants, or when music just hits just right. But let me say this loud for the perfectionists in the back. It is a spectrum, not a switch. You don't magically live in safety because you've done the work. Like, you still get triggered, and you still overthink texts, and you still forget to eat and then rage at your fridge at 9 p.m. But the difference now is that you notice, and you name it, and you don't just collapse into it. You say, oh, this is a trauma response, instead of saying, well, this is just who I am. And every time you do that, you reclaim a little more of your truth. But this part isn't flashy. It's brushing your teeth while crying. It's stretching in the morning even though your body feels like a rock. It's choosing to stay with your breath when an old trigger whispers that you're not safe. And it's saying no to people who used to feed off of your people-pleasing. Maybe it's just eating breakfast. That's the work. And yeah, rebuilding means grieving. Grieving the years that you spent performing somebody else's idea of who you should be, or grieving the relationships that just couldn't meet your healing, or grieving the version of you that never got to feel safe because survival is the only thing on the menu. And grief doesn't mean that you're regressing. It just means that your heart is waking up. And as your heart wakes up, your energy field does too. From a frequency standpoint, every micro action of care sends a new signal. So drinking water with intention, frequency. Going outside for 5 minutes, frequency. Putting your phone down and making eye contact with your own reflection in the mirror like, daggum, we are still here. Major frequency. Because here's the truth. The universe doesn't speak English. It speaks energy. And when your energy begins to shift, and not through grand declarations, but through quiet alignment, the whole external begins to reconfigure. And this is quantum recalibration through mundane magic. And it's also where ritual comes in, and not the Instagrammable full moon and Louboutins kind of ritual. Although, if hey, that's your vibe, girl, work it. I'm talking about daily devotionals to aliveness. So, washing your face like an apology to your body, cooking yourself a real meal, or listening to your intuition and turning left instead of right on your walk just because it feels right. So, that's ritual. Ritual is structure for your sacredness. It is how we tell the universe, I am ready to receive, even when we're not sure what that looks like yet. And on the days where you don't feel ready, or where joy still feels like a stranger and your inner critic is louder than your inner guide, those are the days you rest. Not as defeat, but as resistance, as reclamation, as a fucking revolution. Because in a world obsessed with productivity, your stillness is sacred. Your breath is a spell. Your healing is a protest against every system that taught you your worth was conditional. And here's where it gets real quantum. Your coherence compounds. Every time you show up for yourself, your electromagnetic field becomes more stable. You attract differently. You perceive differently. You create differently. And it's not because you're trying harder. It's because you're finally aligned. So if all you did today was drink water, take your meds, and say no to that one person and feed your dog, baby, you are rebuilding the universe from the inside out. And now we're almost there. We've collapsed. We've frozen. We've rewired. We've felt. We've rebuilt. And now comes the final phase. Not the finish line, but the embodiment. It's the moment you realize, I am no longer chasing healing. I am the after. There's a moment, soft and unannounced and not wrapped in fireworks or applause, where you realize that you're no longer surviving. You're not scanning the horizon for the next emotional earthquake. You're not waiting for the rug to be pulled out, or the betrayal to drop, or the body to flare, or the sky to fall. You're not micromanaging the universe or rehearsing your trauma responses on loop like they're a Netflix special. You're just here. You're just breathing fully and deeply and differently. And this is the after. This is the part that nobody really warns you about how quiet it is. And it's not in that eerie and haunted way, but in that grounded, cell-deep, sacred kind of quiet that can only arrive after you've walked barefoot through the fire and let it burn everything that was never really you. And it doesn't feel like achievement, but it does feel like integration. And you don't wake up one day and go, well, damn, I've done it. I am healed. Nope. That is not how this works. Like, you're still gonna cry. You're still gonna get activated. Your shadow is still gonna make a cameo in a group text every now and again. But something has changed. You don't collapse when it happens. You just respond with breath and with presence and with self-trust. So you've become the version of you who can hold it all. And that is the after. Not perfection and not immunity and not permanent euphoria. I can't even say the word. But capacity. The capacity to feel joy without bracing for the pain. Or the capacity to receive without spiraling into guilt. It's the capacity to say no and actually mean it. It's the capacity to love without leaking. The capacity to be alone without feeling abandoned, and the capacity to experience your life without needing to numb it or hustle through it or make it performative. And that's sacred. That's revolution. And it is healing. And from a biological perspective, that's your nervous system finally regulating in real time. You're not bypassing anymore. You're actually embodying. So the amygdala, your brain's fear center, it's no longer hijacking your every decision. It's still there. It's still a little twitchy on occasion, but it's not driving the bus. And your prefrontal cortex, which is the part of your brain responsible for reasoning and executive function, it is back online. Like, hello, discernment. Hello, self awareness. Hello, I don't chase, I attract. Your HPA axis, stabilized. Cortisol's no longer boiling your insides, and your hormones are playing nice-ish. Heavy on the ish. Your immune system isn't on high alert like it's a war zone, and your gut isn't holding your grief hostage, and your breath isn't shallow and scared. And you can feel your life again. And that's not nothing. That's literally everything. So, energetically, your field is shifted too. Your biofield is more coherent and your signal is clear. You're no longer attracting trauma twins or jobs that feel like punishment or repeating patterns that whisper, see, you're still broken. You're drawing in mirrors of your own healing, of your own wholeness, and of your own self-worth. And it's not because you finally earned it. It's simply because you finally aligned with it. You became it. You didn't hustle for a new frequency. You just reclaimed the one that's always been yours. And the beautiful irony of becoming, it's not becoming someone else. It's just becoming more you. The real you. The before the conditioning and before the collapse and before the performance you. The you that always existed underneath those trauma responses, under the shoulds and the shames and the masks and the noise. It's the you that your soul has gently whispered to you to come back to you this entire time. And then that's what the after gives you. It's just your sovereignty. It's the power to choose your own pace and to your own yeses and your own no's and your own sacred timing. The after says, you don't have to prove anything anymore. You just have to be in integrity with yourself. And listen, like I get it. It's not always easy. Sometimes the after is boring. Sometimes it's anticlimactic. Sometimes it's Tuesday and you're doing laundry and wondering if this is it. But that's kind of the point. The after isn't about ascension. It's about inhabitation. It's about being in your body and being in your life and just being in your breath. It's choosing what's true even when nobody's watching, or making peace a lifestyle, not a destination. It's saying I love you to your own reflection even when your inner critic clears her throat. It's understanding that grief is still going to live here. Triggers are still going to happen. Healing is not a one-way staircase. It is quite truly a spiral. But the difference now is that you know how to hold yourself. You have built an inner infrastructure sturdy enough to withstand the next wave. And it's not because you're untouchable. It's because you're rooted. Like you've composted your collapse. You've repurposed the rubble. And you've woven your broken bits into gold. You've become a walking kintsugi bowl. It's still cracked, but radiantly whole. And maybe most beautifully of all, you're no longer asking, when will I be healed? You're asking, what do I want to create from this new wholeness? Because that's the gift of the after. You actually get to choose. You get to write the next chapter not from survival or strategy or codependency, but from sovereignty and resonance and truth. And the truth is, you are not who you were. You're softer, and you're wiser, and you're more attuned to your own frequency than ever before. And you don't need external validation to know your worth. You don't need a 5-step plan to know your next move. You just listen to your body and to your intuition and to your breath, and then you trust what you hear. This is the after. It's quiet, it's powerful, and it's yours. And so, if nobody's told you lately, I see you, and I honor you, and I celebrate the version of you that refused to stay buried underneath the collapse. I celebrate the fire that you walked through, and the voice that you reclaimed, and the truth that you now carry like a tuning fork in your chest. You are the after. And you know what? You're just getting started. Now go live it. Not perfectly, not performatively, but wholly. If you loved this episode, be sure to hit that subscribe button and leave us a glowing review. It helps more beautiful souls like you find this space. Because your words matter, your energy ripples, and every review is like a little spell of support for the Synaptic Soul mission. So until next time, stay curious, stay cosmic, and keep waking the F up.